Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call back into session this meeting of the Public Education Commission. We have been on the road since Tuesday with community input hearings. So we are here. It is Thursday, July 11th, 2024, and it is 9:05 a.m. And we are here for a community input hearing for Sacramento School of Engineering and Science. And I'm going to ask Secretary Beck to take roll for us, please.
Commissioner Kloshasillage, Commissioner Brower, Commissioner Manus,
Here.
Commissioner Armijo, Commissioner Taylor,
Here.
Commissioner Burt,
Here.
Chair Gibson,
Here.
Vice Chair Carrillo,
Here.
Commissioner Ingham,
Here.
Secretary Beck here. Let's see, 6, 7. We have 8.
So today we will be hearing from the applicant, have an opportunity to do their presentation. We will have time for public comment, and there was a sign-up sheet in the back if anyone wishes to make public comment. The PEC will then spend time asking questions of the applicant. We have a regular meeting scheduled for a week from this Friday. And there's a work session that occurs before that. During that work session, any additional questions, we have some commissioners that were not able to make it to the hearing. If there are any additional questions that commissioners have, they will express them at that work session. There'll be a letter that will come out from me probably the following Monday or Tuesday with those questions. And the expectation is that the school will respond to those at the August hearing. In between that letter and our August hearing, the Charter School Division will make a final recommendation to us. We will have the August meeting in which there will once again be a hearing for the applicant team. Public comment is always an opportunity, and it is at that meeting that the PEC will make its vote and its final decision. So if you're not clear on the process, please feel free to check with the director and she can answer any of those questions. So once again, all right. So for those folks that may be planning to travel up to Santa Fe for the August hearing, that week is the week that starts Indian Market. So it's challenging. So if you don't want to stay in Albuquerque and drive up, and good luck finding a parking space, it's going to be hard. So if you're planning on, I would absolutely make your reservations as soon as possible. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we are always, and you can do your public comment via Zoom. So you don't have to drive up for 2 minutes of public comment. You know, I've done that at the legislature a lot, you know, so, but no, it is, there will be a link on the agenda, which will be posted on our website. And that link will give you the opportunity. And Missy always puts a note when you log into the webinar, that you can sign up through chat until 9 a.m. or I'm sorry, whenever our meeting starts, because we have the work session. We're not going to have a work session first. Whatever time the meeting starts, there's a note on there when you have to sign up by. Sure. Okay. So the applicant team has 20 minutes to make the presentation. I am going to ask that before your timing starts, that the presentation team introduces themselves. We do have a court reporter that's making a transcript. She's on Zoom. So please, anyone, if you're coming up for public comment or the applicant team, introduce yourself and spell your last name so we have it accurate for the record. So you can start your introductions. After introductions, that's when your time will start.
Thank you. My name is Cynthia Stong, S-T-O-N-G. I am the leader of the founding committee, or the founding committee for the charter school. My background is a 30-year mechanical engineer. I have an MBA and a certificate in project management, which is, I think, why I was tasked for this. And I have a great team to work with here, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I am Dr. Michelle Perry. I am a 30-year educator here in the state of New Mexico. I have fulfilled roles as teacher and administration. And last name, by the way, Perry. Thank you. And I am very excited to be here today. I have, again, a PhD in curriculum and instruction. So this is very near and dear to my heart. And the last thing that I'll add is that my own father's retired Air Force. I was a military brat. And so this is a great opportunity for me to be here. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lori Black, B-L-A-C-K. I am happy to say that I was born here in Alamogordo and was educated at APS happily. And since that time, I was a financial consultant, and I also owned a very well-known nationally and world nationally award-winning champions and all-star cheer and dance studio. I did that for 30 years. Now, I currently am the executive director at the Flickinger Center for Performing Arts here in Alamogordo, and I serve on the Chamber of Commerce Board as well as the Tularosa Basin Museum of History.
Good morning. My name is Dr. James Klump, K-L-U-M-P. And I'm born and raised here in Alamogordo, lived here all my life. I'm also a graduate here from Alamogordo High School, very proud Tiger. But I went off and got my dental degree and had a 40-year practice here in Alamogordo, retired about 5 years ago. And since then, I've been chairman for Main Gate United, who is arm of the Chamber of Commerce, which deals with the mission out at Holloman Air Force Base and ensuring that we always have a mission out there at Holloman Air Force Base.
Okay. Or is the slideshow going to show up here? There it is. Perfect. Thank you. All right, timer. Thank you, commissioners, PED, wonderful and supportive founding committee, those who support us and those who want to learn more. Thank you for being here. And I just have to say, when I left this morning, I had a dump truck and a backhoe in my backyard digging a swimming pool to lure grandkids here. So can't wait to go see what they do. I have the slides. So why a STEM charter high school in Alamogordo? Here's our areas of focus. We have the Holloman Air Force Base, which fuels our economy here, business workforce needs, parents and students. Students are the most important reason we're here. So Holloman Air Force Base and our economy, that's a picture of the high-speed test track. It's pretty cool being an engineering nerd. They run sled tests down that, and I get to go watch sometimes. It's very cool. And we've been working closely in coordination with the 846 Test Squadron to work on their workforce skills and career fields that they've identified as needs. And they've been our partner in all this. The test track's been around since it was established in 1942 at Holloman, and it was constructed in 1949. And now they're looking to duplicate that track and grow their ability to do tests out there. So they've come to us and asked for help for training more science and engineers in the area, because we do know that local students are more apt to come back and stay in Alamogordo after college and work out there. So you can see above that there are multiple other businesses in the area that are interested in science and engineering students as well. We have NASA, we have Spaceport. You can see the pictures there. Our school will work closely with these local employers to align curriculum and learning opportunities that'll best prepare our students to fill the high-wage, high-need careers. Other businesses that we've heard from are the hospital. There's a lot of smaller tech companies. And I know personally that the need is out there. My husband and I run a high school robotics team, and we have these companies coming to us, snagging our students while they're still in high school. Next. And then parents and students. So this talks about the New Mexico's ranking 50th in 4th grade reading and 8th grade math proficiency. And it's noted about teens that are neither working or enrolled in high school and in high school and not graduating on time. So most importantly, we've heard from parents who want their children back here after college to get those fabulous jobs. So we're doing this for them. So what's innovative and unique about what we're offering here? Here's some of the bullet points that we've based our application on, but I want to highlight a couple. We're going to be technology-driven learning opportunities. We're going to do outcome-based performance. We're going to have a small pupil to teacher ratio. We're going to workforce alignment. We're going to have a year-round schedule. We're going to have a unique school day with 4 quarters and 4-period day. We're going to integrate all of the curriculum into our programs using project-based learning. So we're trying this way at the Sacramento School of Engineering and Science. This interdisciplinary approach encourages students to make connections between subjects, fostering a deeper understanding and enabling them to apply their knowledge in real-world contexts. We know this works. Here's an example of the instructional model that we're basing our foundation on. So it's this is a picture of a vertical instructional model. It's using founded New Mexico adopted standards, all subject areas, not just the STEM subjects. So that moves into our integrated curriculum that I mentioned and includes transportable skills, those soft skills that the kids need for success in life. It promotes college and career readiness, and then hopefully brings them back into our community and our economy. So here's another way to look at what we plan on doing. And the little boxes under the colored boxes offer some more detail. So just highlighting some of them, we think our students will come out prepared for engineering trades or college and science trades in college. And those soft skills I mentioned, really important is communication, problem solving. And then you see the list below. Those are all really important. Time management, personal skills. And then the 4-day sessions I wanted to highlight, and we're going to integrate math in everything. Okay. So this shows the 3 content areas and how they overlap in relation to our adopted course standards. This is the lens that we're going to use at our school to put our curriculum together. I'm going to let you look for a second. Kind of hard to read. So down to the 2 measurable goals I want to highlight for our school. This is what's going to drive our decision making. So goal 1 is by learning with an integrated curriculum and scope and sequence, which are taught to mastery level, we're going to measure 90% of our students passing with scores of 80% or higher, quarterly content area assessments, achieve proficiency levels on New Mexico SAT and New Mexico ASR, the Assessment of Science Readiness, pass advanced placement exams in English language arts, world history, calculus, and physics. Goal 2, students will develop transportable skills which will help them become college or career ready, as evidenced by college enrollment or employment upon graduation. So our measure is 100% of students at our school will achieve college training, school acceptance, or job placement after graduation. So we turned in our application and had a capacity hearing. At that capacity hearing, it was a peer review. And I really appreciate their feedback. There was a lot of good information in there. So I want to highlight some of the positive things I found in their comments. So these are quotes from them. They said, a compelling and unique mission and vision, an instructional philosophy that allows for academic rigor and a focus on the school's mission. Use of AP and Project Lead the Way strengthen our academic framework. Strong plans for our board structure and qualifications. Internal control procedures were strong, and an impressive amount of outreach was done among business, community, and media. And with that came some suggestions for improvement. So I want to highlight some of those too. They asked us to build and expand policies on equity and inclusion, at-risk populations beyond the English learning, data collection and use, expand our org chart and job descriptions, an employee handbook, further explain how family can participate in the governing council, and updates to our budget and financial oversight policies. They suggested adding a licensed school budget person to the committee, which we plan to do. So the next slides are going to highlight some of the areas that we're working on right now. So we're continuing to expand our documentation in all areas to be ready if we are approved. We're planning a broad search for governing council members. Our bylaws allow for 5 to 9 on our board. Right now, we have an interested attorney with previous charter school experience. I am willing to be the board president and use my previous board experience to ensure a smooth start. We have several interested parents from the base. I have an experienced business owner. Lori said she would help us. And there's an educator that's newly on our committee who has data analysis skills, who's interested. Next. Another area they asked us to look into or comment on was our facility. This picture is kind of our favorite spot right now, but we've been touring other facilities in the area and researching where we could possibly have this school. So this one here is a fairly new building. We call it the pre-check building. They aren't in there anymore. They all work virtually, but it offers, it's new. It offers minimal renovations inside to support our school. It has this front secure entrance. And the thing I really appreciate, it has a lot of room for expansion, both inside and land next to it outside. So we're continuing to talk to those owners about favorable lease or buy options. And I went to a little gathering in Las Cruces of charter schools. I talked to all the charter schools there, and all of them said they wish they had more space. So we think this is a great place for us to look at starting. Okay. Another area we were asked to work on was finding out parental and student interest in our area. So we've had a survey out for just a little over a week. And we've had over 147 responses. This was a snapshot as of yesterday afternoon. But what I want to note here is the majority who completed this are in the 25 to 44-year-old range, which is the area we're interested in looking at. And the majority believe that STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, education is important, as I do too. And that was a question asked on a scale of 1 to 3, how important it was. The next question I'm highlighting is, would you be interested in sending your child to a STEM charter high school? Again, 85% said yes or are interested in sending their student to a STEM high school. Here's another way to look at the data. So more people between the ages of 25 to 54 state that they're interested in or may be interested in sending their student to a STEM charter high school. And those who answered yes have a higher number of children. So I'll let you look at that for a second. And this is an eye chart, but to highlight, the question was that we asked, would you be interested in sending your child to a STEM charter high school in Alamogordo? Those who answered yes or maybe, we picked out some commonality of themes among their answers, and you don't need to read all these, but I want to highlight that overall, the desire was for enhanced educational opportunities and resources in Alamogordo with a specific focus on support for STEM education, improving educational quality, extracurricular activities, economic and community impact, inclusivity and accessibility, diversity and comprehensive education, community engagement and information, and teacher quality and resources. Next. And then there were some folks who answered no. The most common concerns we noted was lack of diversity, uncertainty about charter school performance, funding, and resources. So we understand that a charter school is a new concept to our community. We don't have one. We'll continue to educate our community by holding open house meetings, continuing to do spots on the radio, newspaper, presentation to community groups, Rotaries, churches, etc. We welcome input and feedback. We're open to learning how this works and how to make it a success for our entire community. And I know I've learned a lot being an engineer in this last few months. I've learned a lot of education lingo. So we're all learning as we go. So here's another slide that highlighted some of the common answers to the folks that said no, they wouldn't be interested. So the comments center around concerns regarding the impact of this STEM charter school on the existing public school system. The comments were about redundancy and resource allocation, equity and inclusion, community impact and support, transparency and motivation, funding and financial concerns, special needs and support services, safety and security. And those are areas that we're going to have to look at and address and educate. So I put in here, this was a flyer we made early on for our school to get public information out there. It highlights our vision and our purpose. And I just want to point out that this group is very committed to meeting the needs of the community, parents, and students by offering this unique high school charter focused on science and engineering. We intend to produce well-rounded and college-ready students. I personally am motivated. I've had 3 decades of giving back and working with youth. I was a senior vice president in the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, focusing on the college students and early career students. And same with being an international FIRST Robotics chief judge, so working with lots of students in that arena. And then, of course, our local team. So this is my opportunity to give back to my community and share some of the success I've had as an engineer and for the next generation. We also very much appreciate the rigor from the state. There's state law that guides us. the PED, the PEC, and the fact that I believe our community is very vocal and will hold us accountable. And I'd like to ask my team to go down the line, and I wanted them to share with you, just like I did, why they're personally invested in this effort.
Hi, I am personally invested in this effort because I am a lifetime educator and I have seen education in New Mexico for 30 years, all the way from pre-K to higher education. And I've seen the internal systems and the workings. And here's what I know is that every educator in this state wants to see children succeed. And this is another way to do that. And so in being able to explore a different way to provide such needed skills in science and engineering and to build our community's workforce is something that I absolutely believe in. And I want to be a part of the solution. I want to educate our children to the best possible ways. And I don't want to ever hear anybody say, I can't do math, I can't do science, because then I know that I will have failed my mission. Every teacher can teach math and science. Every student can learn math and science. And we have to make sure we hold this bar high, and there's no more excuses. Our children can perform, and they will.
I'll make mine real brief. I've given my entire life to the children of this community, and I see absolutely every reason to move forward with this and to work really hard so that we are providing such an incredible education to our youth.
How much time do I have? About a minute and a half, okay. One of the reasons why I've been committed to this, I've have a background, I've been involved with the Miss America system for about 20 years now. And I know a lot of people make fun of the pageant world, but the Miss America system has been dedicated to providing scholarships for young women, and which is the world's largest organization providing scholarships for young women in the US. And it's been my mission, and I've always been involved in helping those young women succeed in life, and getting the scholarships so that they can get their education and make their dreams come true. Our outgoing Miss America last year was a nuclear physicist, and was not an honorary title. She is a nuclear physicist designing nuclear cores. Our current Miss America this year is a graduate of the Air Force Academy. So these are serious women with serious dreams, and I am just transporting that from those women to all of our students here in Alamogordo. So I have a desire to make these our kids here in town succeed.
So thanks so much. So now we're into our public comments. So I'm going to ask first if there is anyone from Alamogordo Public Schools here that wishes to speak. Okay. My second ask is there anyone here from a tribal community who wishes to speak? Okay, we're now on to general public comments. So Missy, do we have anyone online?
We do,
Okay.
Chair Gibson. We have one person online, Hope Morales. Hope, I've allowing you to speak. If you could please remember to spell your last name. And after that, I will start the timer for 2 minutes.
Alrighty, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, Hope Morales, last name Morales.
Okay, you can go.
Alrighty. Good morning, Madam Chair and members. My name is Hope Morales, and I'm the Executive Director for Teach Plus New Mexico. I'm a former local school board member and a parent of 2 children attending public schools and a son in college. I recently spoke to a group of students participating in the Upward program at ENMUR, whose program goal is to increase the rate at which participants complete high school and enroll in and graduate from post-secondary education as first-generation college students. Students like the group I spoke to and in communities across our state deserve access to a quality educational experience that will give them the knowledge and skills to be successful in their communities. Research has helped prove that a quality education is a key driver of economic growth and development. Education enables individuals to acquire the skills and knowledge needed to participate in the workforce, start their own business, and contribute to the economy. It also helps reduce poverty by improving job opportunities and increasing incomes. New Mexico data indicates that students who are attending charter schools are outperforming students at traditional public schools. Expansion at these schools and approvals for promising schools will give more students immediate access to quality school systems. I stand in support, not of charter schools in general, but of the promise and plans for effective schools. Sacramento School of Engineering and Science has created a vision of rigor, support, and desired outcomes needed for student success that will translate into improved economic mobility. They will meet not only the academic needs of their students, but also the workforce needs that are tied to great career pathways offered within and around their community. The Alamogordo community deserves access to more school options that will meet the needs of their children and our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next in the room, we have Carolyn Atkinson.
Carolyn Atkinson, Atkinson. And I just want to make a comment that I just don't see any downside to having more opportunities in education in Alamogordo. We having a focused curriculum like the STEM program provides will help, I think, with our workforce, with our connections to the whole state. The whole state has a very heavy science and technology background. And I think our students being part of that here in Alamogordo will really, well, give them more opportunities in the whole state. Thank you.
Next, we have John Davis.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is John Davis. The last name is spelled D-A-V-I-S. I'm a retired registered nurse, and I'm speaking today against the charter school program. I 100% trust their intent. The result will be the students will be left behind. Brown versus Board of Education said separate is not equal. I'm worried that what will happen is we'll have a duplication of resources, duplication of needs for microscopes, autoclaves, all sorts of equipment, when that money could be better put to use in mentorships, internships, and building the program that we currently have in the Alamogordo Public Schools. Thank you so much.
Next, we have John Black, I believe.
Hi there, Madam Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you. John Block, not Black, although I love Lori Black here in the front, and I appreciate that. So yeah, my name is John Block. I'm the state representative in the area, District 51. You know, I'm a native New Mexican, and I'm blessed to live in the greatest state that I think we could potentially ever have. But when I was going to high school, I didn't really feel challenged, and I really didn't feel like I fit in the box of traditional everyday education. So I had the opportunity myself to be able to go to a charter school. I had the opportunity to do the lottery and attend a charter school. And by the grace of God, I got in, and it really challenged me. And when I was in that high school education, I also was able to take other classes at a college with people that I thought would help me in my career. I switched my majors a couple times. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I ended up doing business administration. And I was blessed to graduate from that charter school, one credit shy of an associate's degree. And because of that, it really challenged me to want to do better for our state. And so with this opportunity of this charter school here in our state and in our community, I think it's important to give Alamogordo students a choice. Not everybody is the same. Not everybody wants to follow the same paths. And I think it's so important that we as a community listen to the parents, listen to the teachers, and listen to the children who want better for themselves. So I really hope that you consider this proposal and look at the great packet they've put together. And I really hope that together we can bring a charter school to Alamogordo. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
It wouldn't be me if I didn't mess up names. So the next we have, I'm gonna guess, Joanne Vana? Vula? Joanne Lula? Okay, Joanne.
It's V like in Victor, ULLO. Okay, I'm gonna take my glasses. Sorry, I can't read with them. We, the members of the Otero County LULAC Council 8105, are opposed to the formation of the STEM charter school in Alamogordo. After attending two information meetings, which were poorly advertised and thus poorly attended, found that there was no diversity on the planning committee. Apparently, the application was started in January 2024, and these two meetings were not held till May. At the first meeting, I was asked to serve on the planning committee, of which I declined because of my position as president of Otero County LULAC. I suggested our VP, Jerry Martinez, as he is a pastor and his partner has children of school age. The application was to be submitted in July. To my knowledge, Mr. Martinez was not asked for input nor participated in the application process. We feel that this charter school is a poor attempt to create a segregated school. Racial ignorance continues in this area since 1901, where the first two public schools were built and white-only children attended. Minority children were prevented education in Alamogordo until 1914, when the all-white school board built the Maryland School for Mexican Children. It is reported that the Black children wanted their own school so they could have teachers that looked like them. Sorry. The issue was that these Black children had to attend the Covenant Baptist Church and not public school with public funds. The Mexican children endured trauma as they were made to abandon the Spanish language, and punishment for speaking Spanish continued in the 1960s. Although integration was mandated in 1949 by the military, as the Holloman Air Force Base was a part of the community, actual integration of Mexican and Black children did not occur until 1952. The south side of 10th Street was still segregated with white-only drinking fountains and restaurants, and in the Mexican school, now called Dudley. It was named after a teacher who taught in the segregated school before 1948. Interracial marriage was not even legal till 1967. I remind us here today that history can repeat itself, and this charter school is not a means to promote STEM curriculum because the Alamogordo High School has had a program place for some time. This charter school is a way for those homeschooled children to have their own high school paid for with public funds. This reeks of segregation. The sibling advantage will prevent a real lottery, and minority students will be at a disadvantage. The planning committee has a known bias to CRT, minority inclusion, and public education standards. Otero County LULAC will continue to fight the continued discrimination that has existed in Otero County since the 1900s and prevent a watering down of our New Mexico public education. All children deserve the best education.
The timer did go. Could you please try to wrap it up?
Okay, I'm almost through. All children deserve the best education that New Mexico can provide with equal outcomes. A segregated STEM charter school is not the answer using public funds. If homeschooled children need a high school, Otero County LULAC suggests they build a private school and pay it with private funds. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ted Bringer.
Good morning. My name is Ted Brinegar, Brinegar. It's like vinegar, but just Bravo Romeo on the front. I'm a parent of 5 kids here in the community, 2 of which have already graduated and are off to high school. But and I have 13 more years of kids in our education system coming up. So this is really important to me. The world is changing very quickly, and our education has to as well. With my kids, I say, with the way that our world is changing, you need, as a student, to really master 2 things. The first is the skill of acquiring skill. It's not enough just to be able to put data in your head and spit it back out. We have to learn to apply that in a way that it creates real things. And the second is simply project management. How do we take big ideas and break them down into chunks where we actually get there? Our current education system isn't really designed to teach either of these things, but the Sacramento school and the way that they have designed their curriculum to integrate the different topics and focus on project-based learning, to me, really gets at the core of what students need to succeed in the world to come. There's no way that we can even predict what information they'll need to know in the future. But what we do know is that they need to be able to become autodidacts. They need to learn to teach themselves, to gain those skills themselves, and to apply them to real world situations. And the vision and mission of the Sacramento school is to develop those exact skills inside our students. And so as a parent whose oldest is in school for mechanical engineering, going into his junior year and on scholarship, and will be working at the test track out here after he graduates, can say with conviction that this educational opportunity is needed. My son graduated from the high school here, was participating in the engineering program there, and the vast majority of what he learned in engineering was outside of that because it didn't go far enough. And he was hungry and went after additional opportunities and made that happen. But as a parent, that would have been so much easier, and he could have gotten even further had he had this opportunity available to him. And I'm looking forward to it being available to my, the next of my children coming forward. Thank you.
Next, we have Stan Hernandez.
So there's an opportunity to provide, there's a link, opportunity to provide comment by writing. So it can be submitted that way. Yeah.
Okay. Nolan Ojeda.
I'm short. So Nolan Ojeda, Ojeda. So I also have a mechanical engineering degree. I graduated from NMSU. I spent about 10 years working for the Department of Defense, and now I work for a nonprofit. Go figure. So, but I was diagnosed with severe dyslexia when I was about 6 years old. They told my mother I would never read past a 2nd grade level. And we moved to Phoenix, and I got into a charter school. And I will say that, yes, diversity is sometimes a hard hurdle to cross. I was one of the few non-Caucasian students at that school, but I can say that that education set me up for success. It wasn't so much, or it wasn't particularly just the math skills and the physics skills. Really, it was the work ethic. By the time I got to college, I thought it was easy because my homework at my charter school was more difficult and took me a lot longer. And learning how to public speak and be confident in myself, public speaking was an aspect to every part of my education there, whether it was math or anything. We had to present at every single course. And so I think that really it was the soft skills that were so ingrained in my education there that set me up for success later. It led me to being a program manager for something that's been implemented across the entire Pacific Fleet for our Navy within the first 3 years of my career as an engineer, which is pretty fast. It set me up to be a test conductor for the Patriot missile system at White Sands. So these weren't just that I was good at math. It was that I was good at people. I was good at organization. I was a self-starter. I had good time management. I could talk to people. I could translate highly technical information into language that the broader community is able to understand, including people back at Washington, D.C., including presenting at the Pentagon twice for the Navy. So yes, it taught me math and science, which I needed to graduate with my degree, but it was all the other things that it taught me that led to my success. So I am pro having this option here for my children in Alamogordo. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Dave Dorling or Dooling.
I get that mispronunciation a lot. Dueling, D-O-O-L-I-N-G. Good morning. I have been here for 22 years as an informal science educator, first working up at Sunspot and recently retired after 11 years as education director at the Space Museum. When I went to high school, all schools really, 1 through 12, public, the subjects tended to be a bit of a disconnected patchwork, and we weren't really taught how things integrated ultimately. The science and technology drives history, which in turn drives science and technology. Big case in point, going to the moon. I love how the Sacramento school will integrate and have everything working together. And this is a place that we need to help incubate the brains that we're going to need to have to run things, and also to have the educated voters. That's really the most important part in science education. Educated voters and taxpayers who understand the issues that are going to be facing them in the coming decades. The one thing that I would like to see added, which I've not seen mentioned, is that the charter school have some mechanism for intake of the students who were at risk or still at risk, who previously would have been going to Academy del Sol until that activity was disbanded, to help make sure that they are not left behind in the backwash, that they have the equal opportunities so that they also can in turn become inspirations and role models for others and raise everybody. Thank you.
Commissioners, that concludes our public comment.
We're going to take a 10-minute break.
If we could please wrap this break up.
So we are now on to questions by the commission. Commissioner Beck.
Hi, thank you for all the information and thanks for the community input. It's always super valuable to us in terms of how we view these things. A few questions real quick. I'm usually fairly fast here. Obviously, there's some concerns about the equity issue and in terms of reaching underserved populations and um, uh, those types of groups and individuals. What's your specific plan in the next year? Understanding that it's a random lottery, that we do a purely random lottery, but what's your plans to reach out and communicate specifically to those underserved groups so that they will be able to have the information necessary to understand what your school is about and that it's truly a public school, not a private school that everybody gets confused about. But what's your plan specifically to get to those groups?
Thank you for the question. And we've thought about that because a lot of what we're hearing, even on our survey, is concerns around that. And Miss Joanne actually alluded to 2 open sessions that we had that she attended. And we got some actually great ideas from her and her folks that attended. They suggested going to places like even the churches around here and talking to those groups, which I thought was a great idea. We've also talked about going to all the community groups. I think I mentioned that, like Rotary. We're also going to go to all the community events that happen around here. This town has a lot of community events. It's a great town, actually. They do things like 4th Fridays where they have music at the zoo. We'll go to health fairs. We're going to go do outreach anywhere we can, along with the radio and newspaper ads. We'll do the best we can with that. It's important to have broad communication out about our school because we want to offer the opportunity to anyone who can attend. It is not a private school. It is not, we're going to pick off the top 10% out of the public high school. There's state laws about the lottery and we have to follow those rules. And we're hopeful that we're going to get the message out broad and wide. Joanne also mentioned that I invited her to be on our founding committee for that reason, to help us get the word out to that community. And her vice president, Jerry Martinez, has been invited to all our meetings. So I just wanted to make that clear too. Anything else?
I would say that this body here, in addition to the entire community, wants nothing more but to see equitability in our community. And I'm dedicated to making sure that we do the recruitment necessary that is in front of all parts of our community. And that means making ourselves widely available at tabling events. And as Cindy said, to the wonderful community events, there is always something going on in this community, whether it's a fest or whether it's a health fair, Earth Day, all of these places. And we also have the privilege of having so many food banks that are in progress all times, 7 days a week. And we would love to go and table at these events if allowed. And so that we are going to make every effort and turn over every rock to make sure that we are getting our recruitment processes in place in front of all audiences.
For me personally, I wouldn't be involved in this if I thought that this wasn't going to be equitable to all people. I'm a grandparent of interracial grandchildren, so I would never want them to not be welcome at this school. Secondly, at the Flickinger Center, we have a huge festival each year. It's called Otero County Heritage Day, and we honor all heritage in for all the years in the past, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. We would love to set up something at that event as well, because we reach out to all communities and welcome them to that as well.
Great, thank you for that. I noticed in the application, when we're looking at a student to teacher ratio, in year one, you were 10 to 1 students to a teacher. And then in year 5 or year 4, you're at 21 to 1, and year 5, you're 27 to 1. Is there a reason why you have such a low teacher-student ratio in year 1 and then drive all the way up to, what again, I was a teacher at Sandia High School. That was 27 to 1 sounds like me in my world. And I'm sure Tommy was at Alamogordo High, my fellow golf coach, same thing. So what's the rationale and the thought process behind driving it that high or keeping it that low at the beginning and not more consistent?
So teacher-student ratio in the beginning is going to be necessary for it to be pretty low. And that is because we anticipate that we are going to need to address gaps in learning, especially in the area of math. And so we want to have ample opportunity to address any kind of learning gaps or any kind of delays in mastery of content in math and science and ELA. But we want to make sure that that tool available to us, that low student-teacher ratio is available to us. And as we go on, we anticipate our students becoming more and more advanced. And the 27 to 1 is a large number. I will definitely agree to that. And if there is a way to keep that below, we will entertain that at all measures. We anticipate that an increased enrollment, our funds from SEG will continue to obviously reflect that. And however, we don't necessarily reflect that we're going to hire more teachers, but what we want to do is ensure our teachers are well paid, ensure our teachers have all of the necessary supplies, materials, resources available to them. And so I'm thinking financially, budgetarily, we want an allocation that is representative of our student body and our needs of our students at that time, and then also the retention of our teachers. We must build in a system in which our teachers are going to want to stay with us. And so that is reflective of that thought process, to be quite honest.
Okay, it's just concerning, and I would look at that that's pretty unusual to have that differential in 5 years. 2 more quick questions. What is your plan for arts inclusion into your curriculum? I didn't see a lot of that. And I was just wondering what your thoughts were in terms of arts inclusion, music, arts, and culture.
I know we plan to offer a lot of, we offer some after-school activities. I know I have a dream of having a robotics team there at the school. And there is an art to building a robot and programming, actually. Do you want to comment on just music and stuff?
So there is 4 periods in the day, and the last period is an hour long, and we look at that period as a very flexible time in the day, a time in the day in which students could take advantage of a lot of different opportunities. And there is nothing to say that if our students wish to collectively, and our parents and our governing council wish to collectively push in more on arts, that can't happen at that time. And so that it would probably look like either a volunteer service or a contracted service for that time in the day. And I will also venture to say that, you know, the STEAM model, you know, that's including the arts and STEM, it is hugely attractive. And so, yeah, we would want to include arts as much as an integrated piece of our curriculum as possible. And using our opportunities to provide that throughout the day is one thing that would be great, but also thinking about that 4th period and using our local resources to implement art as an option in that time would be a viable option.
Again, our local Flickinger Center for Performing Arts has a premiere series that runs exactly like a school year. It starts in August, ends in May. And during that time, we actually hire artists to come in and do educational programs for our students, and we offer them free to anybody, public, private, or homeschooled. And for example, Scrap Arts was just here, and they only have instruments made out of scrap material. So they literally were showing the children and the students how to build that. So we would extend that offer to the charter school as well, and they would be able to participate in any of those. And there's usually at least one a month during the school year.
Great. As you know, research shows that there's a direct connection between reading music and math. There is a direct correlation there. Last question. For some of the charters I've been involved with and some that I'm directly involved with that work hard on STEM, they have really, really amazing labs. 3D printers, like lots of 3D printers, tons of high technology. Are you planning to have that as an integral part of your curriculum and programming? And B, if so, is it funded in the budget?
So anything technology is just my jam completely. I love everything about educational technology. I actually specialize in learning technology. And so, yes, to answer your question, it is part of our plan. We intend to use immersive virtual reality, flat screen panels. We intend to use 3D printers. We intend to use our library as a makerspace. And in the budget, it's limited, obviously. And so that looks very small, very different. Um, you know, should we be made available to other funds? That is the priority, because STEM, technology, math, all of this folds very nicely. And I am a firm believer in preparing our students to enter a world in which they're interfacing technology as touch interactive, artificial intelligence, virtual reality. This is of our timely essence in our trajectory, our history in this world. So I absolutely want all as much technology in a very educationally sound way, in a way that is used not as a toy, not as an implement for amusement, but attached to the educational meaning, the educational content and instruction. So that is how we wish to use technology. And the more that we can get into the setting, the better.
And that's part of what concerned me about the budget was the lack of funding for that. And my hope was that you would have already started working on grants that are out there and available for technology and STEM and et cetera, because there is definitely money available that you can get. And I was hoping that would be part of the budget part of the budget itself already, but
That's a
that's something we're
priority.
getting. Okay,
Mhm,
thank
for
you.
sure.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ingham?
Yeah, to piggyback on that, inclusivity, narrative. I read that you're not going to be able to provide transportation in the first year. Um, I think that is when you talk about, the roadblocks for, students that are, in that socioeconomic condition, transportation is a huge issue. And so I just wanted to ask you to speak to that. It sounds like you're gonna contract with, the local school board or school, system. Have you had any conversations with them and how did that work out for you? And then the second thing, as long as I'm jump on this, is food service, because that's the other issue. So if, it seems to me that you can do a lot of advertising and all that kind of stuff, but if it's a struggle for that family to get to your school, they can't see it as an option. So I would love for you to speak to those two issues.
Sure, thank you very much. So I absolutely understand the issue of transportation. Back to my example of our robotics team, we have been very keen on being in buildings that are walkable from the high school for that very reason. That's how you're going to get the kids to attend. And it's tough. It's tough we've been looking at a lot of buildings in nearby vicinity of the high school, or in town where it's walkable. Some of the public input that we've had as well was think outside the box, be creative. I don't know if any of these things would work, but churches have church vans that sit there all week long and maybe they can help. That just to me as an engineer, I think of the insurance nightmares, et cetera. But we need to think outside the box and be creative on how to provide that transportation year one. So our focus is still looking at a walkable area to have our charter school. And then if not, work on contracting with someone for transportation. I don't know that we specifically talked to the school about buses, but that's in our plan. We're going to do that. And then the second part of your question was food. I think we mentioned at least in our peer capacity hearing, I know we talked about it, just contracting with some food services in the area. The building that we are looking at right out of the box has a large cafeteria area, and we'll figure out a way to do food for that. So we have it covered. Want to add anything?
I'll just reference budget, our food service, USDA and supplemental, we have the funds allocated for food service. And so what that looks like exactly, it could be a contract with the local food service for the schools. It could look like a contract with a local entrepreneur food truck or a food vendor of some sort, a restaurant. But we do know for certain that breakfast and lunch are going to be super important to provide. And we're willing to turn over all rocks on that as well. Transportation, it's a very costly venture, and we will work with the public education department with transportation funds to ensure that we have something possibly into the second year. That first year, maybe not, but we won't stop until we can find some adequate transportation as we go on down the line.
So just as a word of caution, the state law says the school district can contract with the charter school. It doesn't say they have to. So that's a flaw. So that we, across the state, we struggle with school districts that are willing, and they're getting paid for it. It's not asking for services for free, but they refuse to do the food services and the transportation services for the charter schools. So to me, I have that struggle similarly, because that's not something you can wait on. For sure, once again, a flaw in law is that charter schools do not get state funding their first year for transportation. That's an absolute. So that's, that creates that equity gap from the very beginning for many families. And I kind of want to tie into that a little bit, because it was a little concerning for me that there didn't appear to be any reach out to, because you did mention that there was a possibility that there may be students from Escalero come in, and I really didn't see a lot of reach out in the list for that tribal community. And a lot of your what's listed as community support is listed as organizations and media, and it's not families. And that's where, you can get a lot of people fill in a survey and say, yes, I like that. Yes, I'm going to send my child there. The reality is the first day of school. And a lot of those businesses may not have kids that they're going to be sending to the school. So they may very well support the school and think it's a fabulous idea. But it's the families that are going to be sent, that are trusting you to send their children to the school. And that's where I don't see that work. And you did mention it just now, we're going to do it. But for us, we have to make a vote on what has been done, not a promise on what may be done. And I had a challenge with how the community reach out has been done. So, but I appreciate what you've said so far. Could you just talk to me a little bit about, because you said that you're going to have recorded lessons, and I know in the application, you made mention of use of technology, but I'm not 100% sure. And you said there may be classes offered online, but there's not really any explanation as to what that actually is going to look like and what the school day may look like virtually, non-virtually, So could you just talk a little bit about that?
So offering education to a community can look a lot of different ways, especially to high school students. So high school students are older and mature enough to handle multi-modality ways of learning. I think more so than any other grade level. And so when we talk about the use of technology, we're talking about not only using platforms as resources, Khan Academy, right? LMSs, Google, all of those kinds of platforms that a student can access 24/7, because that's really what it comes down to, is being able to access your learning 24/7. And we don't look at education as something that happens in the four walls of a room, from 8 to 5. It's just not, that can't be. We have to try a different way to reach our students who want to learn in different ways. So technology offers that flexibility. So in the way of recorded lessons, so a teacher is doing a direct instruction and is able to record that live, or perhaps they choose to record it before. They post it in a cloud effort on a platform. And the students can look at that. Students on a soccer trip, traveling on a bus, they can look at that. They can look at that direct instruction piece. They can look at the expectations for this next assignment. They can look at the expectations for the assessment. And so this flexibility that they don't have to be in front of a teacher all the time. Now, is it important that they are in front of a teacher? Sometimes, absolutely. We're not saying technology replaces the teacher ever, ever. So that is a wide open area, and we need to be able to be monitoring our students' needs, our families' needs, and being able to use technology as a tool to be flexible in meeting those needs. And in addition to that, the use of immersive virtual reality, which is a passion of mine, being able to put students in headsets to enhance their learning in a way that can't be done otherwise. So that's another way that technology enhances our learning environment. So I do think that this topic is far and wide, and we can talk about all of the instances in which technology can be integrated into the learning environment. But most importantly, the content has to be taught to mastery. And that that piece of the instructional model is incredibly important.
Thank you. So I think I have to echo Commissioner Beck's concerns because it doesn't appear that the budget supports the opportunities that you say that you want to offer. So that's where, and aspirationally, so I'm going to ask you, was the budget created using the assumption that the maximum number of students are going to be there that first year?
Correct. We chart those 5 years across the budget with the number of enrollment increasing incrementally every year.
No, but my question is, so the expectation was, so the SEG that you put in there was for what your cap was.
Correct.
Your top number.
Yep.
So I'm also going to offer you a word of caution that outside of, I think, 2 schools, most charters that open, as much as parents say, I want my kid to go there, you're still not a proven entity and it's their kids. And it's like, oh, I'm going to let that school open for a year and let's see how it goes. It's highly unusual for schools to meet their max. So when you create a budget that's relying on the max, you're setting yourself up, because that gets me into my next question. In your narrative in the budget area, you spoke about what your plans were for the year, but then there was a statement that said, but if enough students don't show up, we're going to redo the budget, we're going to cut the school year, and we're going to have to, because there's additional monies that are allotted. I'm going to use the term stipend, but it's really not a stipend for the teachers. But if we don't get those students, we're going to cut days and we're going to cut that stipend, that additional money out. So my question is, when would you be looking at cutting days? And would those days go less than 180, which is what you've calendar in here? And secondly, what's the conversation you have with staff when you're hiring them, that there could be a possibility that they're not actually going to get paid that? It's an aspiration when you're first hiring them. And what's the likelihood that real quality people are going to buy into that? So it was a real concerning statement when I read that.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and it's really digging in deep on that budget piece, and it is a worry. It's a worry of ours as well. We have to come up with contingency plans should we not get the full 60 enrollment. Part of that, obviously, is looking out towards external funding. Part of that is going to be redesigning the instructional day. Maybe we don't do a full day. We think creatively, we push something online. I don't want to ever retract any kind of contractual agreement. That would be very unwise. And so we have to find better ways. And so we would look to PEC, we would look to others to give us insight and help to figure out better ways to reduce our budget. We know that the SEG, as it is not enough to fully support the vision. We know that right now. And so we are looking to external funds. We, just like any school, looks to external funds to support the projects that make meaningful learning unique and innovative in a school setting. So yeah, we would look to all opportunities. And of course, breaching contracts with teachers is the last thing that we would ever want to do.
So I'm going to say, cautionary tale again. It's probably not the best model to make a budget on the max when it's likely you're not going to hit that max. It'd be great if you do, and then you can offer more, but to claw back is profoundly difficult because number one, you're changing the model for what parents sign their kids up for. And number two, if you're changing your educational model on the application that we approved, that's not the school we approved. So that's a whole different problem. We don't have money. So to say, well, come to the PEC and we'll ask for a solution, I'm going to tell you the till is empty. So that, there is no additional source for us to say. So that's where, I think this is a fabulous idea. I think it's important for this community, but I think the applicant has to be realistic in whether they can provide and support the program. And I know there's grants out there, and it's great if you can get the technology with grants. But if you're relying on real operationals with grant money, it's running out. So that it's not a sustainable model to do that. So that, that is a challenge that I don't think you've addressed sufficiently at this point in time to have confidence that the plan can go as written. And I just have one more budget question, and then I'll turn it over. I did not see, and the budget was put in an appendix that was a little different, but I didn't see a budget for services like, and I didn't see a budget for a special ed teacher. So is there a special ed teacher budgeted here for your first year? And do you have budgeted for special ed services? Because I don't see that.
And that was also part of our peer review, that question. It was legitimately about what are you going to contract exactly? And so in the budget, you see revenue in IDEA, Title I, Title II, you see the revenues there. And so after that question, I went back to pull out what contracted services there would be for these needs. In the state of New Mexico currently, the MLSS model has really given us a lot of flexibility about how we identify students and how we provide them services. So I'm leaning heavily on the Title I. I'm leaning heavily on the IDEA budget. And so contracted services for serving our students in the area of special ed, specific numbers, we will have 5,000 pulled out for contracting services out of a budget of 11,000-ish. And then we're going to use 6,000 of that in special ed for contracting services locally to make sure our students' IEPs are met. I plan to be part of the staff at the school. I'm a special education certified teacher. I plan to, hire teachers who potentially have special education certifications. But nonetheless, we did budget item the contracting services for SPED. Of course, that increases every year as well as enrollment. The same with title funds. Looking at students who are at risk and performing insufficiently. We have contracted supplies out for Title I expenses as well. Finally, we have contracted services out for Title II for professional development to teach teachers ways to provide instruction that meets specific learning needs, that differentiation, that identification of students' skill gaps. So it's a multi-pivoted approach, but there's no doubt I'm fully aware of special education as a necessity in law and meeting the IEP goals. And so that contracted services is spelled out now that it has been addressed.
So I was correct that it wasn't in the budget that was submitted.
Right, it didn't get
Okay.
pulled out, but then since then we've gone and pulled it out.
But understand that we vote on what was submitted in June. The feedback is great for you, but what we vote on is what was submitted. Okay. Commissioner Taylor?
Yeah, thank you. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I want to piggyback a little bit on the what Commissioner Gibson was talking about in regards to the budget. You know, one of the things that I looked at, and I will preface this with, I'm not a budget guy necessarily, but I looked at the cost of the cost of the sort of the building that you guys have identified, which is an absolutely fantastic looking facility, right? But the cost of that, the lease on that building, looks like to me that in the first year there's going to be $250,000 required from operational in order to have that building. Plus, there's a $500,000 renovation budget that needs to be taken care of prior to, I would assume, prior to occupancy. And Commissioner Gibson's, and that's robust. I mean, I think that's very, very robust. Like I said, it looks like a fantastic facility. But to me, I look at that and I think, man, it would be nice to be in that facility and offer all of the new technology that these kids would benefit from. But if I had a choice, well, I should be focusing on the technology aspect of that and the learning part of that, rather than being focused on, you know, a facility that looks like, to me, it looks like we can't afford right now, you know? So what, and especially again, going back to that, what if we have 40 students, you know, what if we have 40 students, we get mid-year and it's like, man, we can't afford to be here, you know? So I don't know if this is more a question or a comment. My thought would be to really pare that down and look for a facility that may not be your ideal facility to start with, and use those funds, those operational funds, to invest in the learning at the school. So the other thing I had a question about was, in your bylaws, I think you mentioned that there would be 5 to 9 GC members. How many of those in the bylaws, does it list how many of those were going to be parents? Because you said there were numerous parents that might be interested in being on the governing council. How many of those, is there a maximum, or is there an ideal number for you all?
So I can look in my giant notebook here, but I'm pretty sure we mentioned at least one parent. We'd like to have more than one, just for the input, but at least one to start with.
That's good. I believe that obviously having parents on the governing council is very valuable, but I think it also can be, I think there needs to be a maximum put on that, and maybe recommend 2 at the most, just so that you don't have an overwhelming number of people that have a biased opinion on how things should be done.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. That's all I had. I don't know if you're waiting.
Thank you.
That's all I
Does
had.
Becca have her hand up? Okay. So can I just make a comment that still ties in with that? If you do your budget for 60 and day 1, there's 40 students, there's a 40-day adjustment. It's not free money from the state. They've given you money for 60 students. That clawback can close the school because you have to pay that money back. They gave it to you. Now you owe it back to them. And that's an adjustment that can drown, especially a new school. So that's why, that budget it's difficult. I mean, we have schools that do everything they can, and even 1 or 2 students, that budget adjustment when it comes is when you're paying Peter, you know. So I do have a question, because I don't know whether I noticed the $500,000 renovation requirement. Where's who's going to pay for the renovation of that building, if that's the building you go to? And there's that expectation for that amount of money for the renovation. Who's paying for that renovation?
Well, you know how budgets are very difficult. And so when we're trying to figure out how to make a space that meets code and is viable, we did list that in the SEG portion in the operational budget. And so we would love to divert that cost to another possibility. We have applied for a grant and we would love to divert bringing that building up to code with other grant funding that makes available more funding through our operational. Then in addition to that, we would definitely seek a lower lease payment. That's already been part of our conversations for sure, is we know that lease payments. And so again, diversion of funds elsewhere. So using operational for everything is obviously not a viable. Our revenue expenditures don't match, obviously. So we do know that there has to be a budget adjustment. And I would also venture to say that, you know, hearing that there are charter schools currently who struggle with this same issue is a little reassuring to me that we're not completely off base. But here's where we stand, is that we are open to any suggestions and any ideas from our, you know, facilitating body. As the PEC, we would entertain and be open to different budget adjustments, and budget adjustments occur in budgets. That's part of having a school budget. So we would want to make sure that we're ready for the inevitable. And finally, we have contracted for a business professional, a school business professional to be alongside of us, guiding us. They are the people who created our SEG formulas. And so we would look to them also because they have ample experience with school budgeting and how to use money correctly. So I would say, no, do we have all the answers right here today on how we will address and pivot at 40 students versus 60 students? No, we do not, but we do know there's others who have gone ahead of us. And then we do know there's others who have encountered this, and we may learn from them. We may learn from you, and we would be willing to adjust and have strategies in place in anticipation of the worst possible outcome, which would be that. And so I feel comforted in knowing that, hearing you say other schools have dealt with this. So I would look to them and say, provide us your insight. I would look to our community. I would look to our budget experts within our governing council. So I do believe that the budget is a hairy, scary item, and I'm more than willing to find solutions to bring something to our students here in this community that's incredibly valuable beyond money.
Okay, so just to be clear, if you're in a lease agreement, no operational money can go to improve that building. So the $500,000 has to be on the landlord. That's what concerns me, that you're budgeting in there for somehow the $500,000 because you're just leasing that. So state money isn't going into improving someone's private property. So that's, and that it's concerning that you haven't had that conversation necessarily with the landlord at this point in time. Those conversations need to have taken place, that we've already talked to them and they are willing to talk about the renovations. Because if there's the expectation that the applicant is only if you're in a lease purchase agreement, then yes, you can make improvements to that building because ultimately you're going to be the owner of that building. But if you're not in a lease purchase, you can't be doing that. But you did mention in the application something about a foundation purchasing a property for you. And I didn't see much else about a foundation. So can you talk to me a little bit about, does the foundation exist already? What kind of funds do they already have available? Because if it is a foundation solely set up to support you, they become a component unit of your audits every year. So you get dinged for any, so that's, I need a little more information about what that foundation looks like.
The foundation that was mentioned is a local foundation that we've been having conversations with. When the local hospital was sold, they put a community foundation together that's solely to support Otero County in this area. So we've been having conversations with them. They're brand new. They've only given out a handful of grants that I know of. So that's who we've been talking to. And also on the facility, we've been talking to the owners. We have had initial conversations and they have expressed they're more than willing to work with us. I just don't know to what extent.
And see, that's where we should be mostly there by now. We should be. So that's not a, because in the application, it said the foundation may purchase the building, but that's probably not what that foundation would do, correct?
I think you're talking about two different foundations. I know I understand that a foundation can be brought alongside a charter school to own the building and help with the building.
And that's what I asked
Yeah,
about.
we don't have that yet.
So so the fact that the foundation may buy the building, the foundation doesn't really exist yet. So the likelihood that the foundation may purchase you a building is unlikely at this point in time because they don't even exist. So there's no funds from it. So how can they purchase a building? Okay. Rebecca?
Real fast, I was looking at the application real quick, and I said, from year 1 to year 5, you go from a 10-to-1 student ratio to a 27 student ratio, and that's on page 186. And then I look down here on page 188, and that changes from 1 to 10 to 1 to 16. Is that just a discrepancy that was within the application?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so it really is 1 to 16 is what your budget has, not 1 to 27.
Yes, as
Okay.
budget allows.
As
right.
budget allows.
Yes.
As we're finding out, as budget allows. Yes, okay, thanks.
Commissioner Manus?
Thank you. I have a couple of different questions than what's already been addressed. I don't think there was anything in the application or in the capacity interviews about your intention or not to work with the Air Force Base. Do you have any intention to work with the Air Force Base at all, given your curriculum?
Actually, we have quite a few folks here from the base and we've been working hand in hand with them. We've had them at our committee meetings. We've gone out there, in fact, and toured their facility, asked for recommendations on what kind of career opportunities are out there and what kind of skill they need out there. I think I mentioned in my presentation, they're expanding that test track. So they've been a huge driving reason to do this school. And they've been like very supportive and committed to us along the way. They're also going to help work with us on providing job training opportunities for the students to get some hands-on experience.
Could you expand a little bit on how you intend to include the career readiness aspect into your curriculum? It seemed like from the peer reviewers' comments, it wasn't necessarily clear that the career readiness aspect was included. It was discussed in there that, there was going to be AP classes and there was more college readiness, but not necessarily career readiness. And so can you expand upon that a little bit?
Sure thing. So juniors and seniors will have that, as I mentioned, that fourth period, flex period. And built into that, idealistically, is that they have workforce experience in internships out at the test track. And in discussing with test track leadership what that might look like, we've gotten a clear picture about what the curriculum needs to hold. We did not have calculus and physics stood up next to each other at first. After talking to them, calculus and physics is now there. And so, yeah, we want to be able to ensure our students are educated in the way that best serves those career fields at the track. And so that coordinated effort is well underway. Actually, I feel it's like one of our strongest bonds with any part of community outreach inside of this application. That is near and dear to a lot of our efforts. I mean, that kind of speaks to the core of our rationality on rationalizing this application, is that we want to be able to match that workforce to the needs out there. And should a student not ever want to work at the test track eventually beyond our goal, say they wanted to work somewhere else, NASA, we're going to be having them equipped for that as well. Say they wanted to work out at the spaceport, we're having them equipped for that as well. So that workforce connection is built in with the curriculum and those workforce experience, or the workplace experiences their junior and senior years.
We also have a really great program here called the Honorary Commander Program. And it's where a community leader is paired with a unit at Holloman. And I think every one of us at this table are are honored to be in that program. So education is definitely something that we constantly talk to our commanders about. We talk about education, housing, anything that we can do to try to help Holloman's stay here better. So education is at the forefront of those conversations.
Great. Beyond the test track and NASA, for other career fields that might not be so intensive as the engineering or math, or just other fields in general that might be more related to technology, right? For other businesses in town, how do you plan to kind of match with some of those opportunities that students could be interested in?
So when we've talked to the test track folks, they've mentioned that as well. They'll need welders, they'll need project managers, they'll need machinists, the whole gamut. And we've had some conversations with folks from the high school. They have a really great CTE, career technology education. They have a great program, and we've actually gone hand in hand with them to look at some equipment that they may house that we can go take our students to, or that we would house and they could take their students to. So we're working with them. And those,
With the district is what you're saying?
yes.
Okay. And that kind of leads me to my next question is, given that Alamogordo High has a really strong proficiency rate in science, theirs is at 55% in the most recent Vistas release, compared to the state average of 34%. What are you going to be doing differently to at least meet or hopefully exceed what Alamogordo High is already doing, that you could say that they're exceptional relative to the state average, right? So what are you going to be doing differently that's going to ensure that you at least meet or hopefully exceed what they're already doing well?
And we do recognize they have a great science program. And in fact, back to my robotics team, we were housed at the school for a while. We know the teams that are still there. I'm familiar with a lot of the teachers that teach there. They do a great job. I think I highlighted that in my discussion with some of maybe the little unique innovations that we're going to put in place. And Michelle's mentioned those as well. Some of the immersive learning and maybe what's the most different is these longer class periods where you can do hands-on projects with integrated courses. I don't think they offer that there, and that'll be what will at least hopefully get us beyond what they're doing well.
And I would add the math component into that mix. I'm very concerned about our students coming to us with math skills. And so while science is beautiful and the ASR, the science test of which those scores are based on, are beautiful, I do know math and science are two sides of a one coin. And so we are actually, missing a little bit of that. And therefore we hope to backfill on some of that to strengthen science even more. So that math piece is something that we're very interested in digging in more.
Yeah, and I noticed that as well, that the math proficiency rates are relatively low for Alamogordo High. So that's kind of, I'm glad that you brought up the math component, because I think that that would be a place where you could definitely serve students where they're missing out on that currently. Do you have a target proficiency rate potentially that you're hoping to get for, math and science, since you're a STEM school? And do you have anything that you've considered at this point?
Well, as with everything, we're shooting for the stars. So 90% is what we're hoping. Every 90% of our student body are proficient on not only the SAT, but the ASR, and pass their AP exams.
Do you think that's realistic for your underserved populations?
So the curriculum layout of the 4-period day offers, and then if the affordability of the budget allows us the staffing that we anticipate and dream of, then what we have are our specialized teachers supporting students in a 2-hour block plus another flexible hour at the end of the day. And we have teachers who can skill build and create and close those skill gaps and create those opportunities for students to address their learning in different ways that promote their success and their proficiency. So is it unreasonable? No, I don't believe it's unreasonable. I think what I encounter as a professional educator and a person who's now consults across the state, working with administrators, working with teachers, working with various educational professionals, is that there might be a little bit of a low bar. For instance, I had a specific conversation with a teacher, and I asked her to kind of push her thinking a little bit on how she could structure a lesson to increase opportunities for students to approach difficult text. And her words to me were, "My kids can't do that." And I just don't accept that. And I think that's horrific for all of our children to have a low bar. And I think that reasonableness is what we have 50th in the nation. That's our reasonableness right now. So to ask us to lower our standard for reasonableness, I feel like then we're not an option. We're not a choice. What, just keep your kids at AHS. So is it lofty? Absolutely. Is it astronomical? Most certainly. But I can't imagine us starting anywhere else.
Kind of an off the wall question that it came up as a discussion during the break, and just to get an idea of this, what do you think your policy would be for like cell phone use in the classroom?
I love this question. I have been in a lot of high schools across the state, and I've seen firsthand the distractibility that cell phones provide students. I was an educator when cell phones hit the classroom, right? When we started seeing cell phones in students, that we went from one day no cell phones, to a gradual every kid has a cell phone. So I've watched it, and I've watched it what it does to our students, just distracted ways, multitasking abilities, their access to information. So I have a myriad of viewpoints on this. So as a group, we have not established this conversation as a cut point, but I would recommend that there are no cell phones. I know that's hard, and I know that many high schools are moving to a no cell phone policy. Ideally, we give each student an electronic device in which they can use for the learning that necessitates the use of internet and such, that their cell phones be away from them. So I think that personally, and I'm only one person, I'm, the resident educator on this board, I don't believe that cell phones have a place in our classroom on a regular basis. And I think we have to control that very carefully.
To build off that, I know that the technology use in the classroom had been talked about a little bit. And the instruction, just for my clarification, there will always be direct instruction, right? It's not going to be any time that you're going to be receiving any type of remote instruction otherwise, unless it's necessary for a school function.
As I mentioned, there is no replacement for the educator. I'm not gonna ever believe that that's true ever. Nothing could convince me of that. And so, yes, direct instruction is part of an instructional protocol that that's timeless. Okay, so Socrates, I mean, it's timeless. And so should we be sage on the stage, lecture for 45 minutes? No, of course not. But there is always a moment of direct instruction in which we pivot our students toward their learning outcomes. And so should students be offered the opportunity to enjoy their outcomes in various ways? Yes, that's a whole different way of approaching learning and teaching. But direct instruction has to be a part of what we deliver for effective learning.
Great. That's all the questions I have for now.
Oh, you're sitting next to him too long. Commissioner Carrillo?
I always talk about the Columbo moment, right? Everybody in here is old enough to remember Columbo. All right. So just because Commissioner Manus, not everyone brought it up, probably not you, Representative Block. I mean, you got to watch television at 3 a.m. now. So Commissioner Manus mentioned cell phones. I would say I'm a complete hardliner on this. That thing is not on from the moment school starts till the moment school ends. It's just not even on. And, your parents know where you are. They should know where you are. And because even if they have it in their hallway and on the lunchroom or whatever, it just takes away from their building up their social skills. There's so much data around that. So anyway, so I was thinking of this proverb or a phrase about the road to ruin is paved with good intentions. And the only reason and I'm not applying that to you guys at all. Don't give me a face or anything. No, seriously. And the reason I bring that up is because, I've been on the commission 3.5 years, and Lord knows I've got another 4.5. But it's like we have so many schools. I wasn't on when they were approved. For many of them, 20 plus, it's this. But in 20 plus have to be renewed this December. So I wasn't there when they started. But I see what they're doing and what their progress has been. And I know that they know they're not performing as well as they thought they might. And it could be a number of reasons. And, I'm not making excuses for anybody, but it's like, I love that you set the bar as high as you did. In goal 1, 90 to 80% or higher. I love that. 100% achieve, they're going to go to college or they've got job acceptance. There's a school called Mission Accomplished Success in Albuquerque. They say that 100% of their kids graduate with a plan. No one gets to leave school without where they're going next and what they're doing. I might be working in the family business. That's fine. You have a plan. You're not just going to hang out at the Allsups in the local park, right? So I love that you have the bar that high. So the DEI thing. I wrote DEI. I mean, there are terms like now that become, even though they're very well intentioned, you say DEI and all of a sudden everyone's hair on their arms goes up. Or you say CRT, that I believe these days is so ridiculously misinterpreted. The idea is equity, that everybody just has opportunity, which is why I support state charters so much. And I come from a school district background, serving 9 years in Santa Fe Public Schools. On the DEI piece, I want to know more about recruiting, because we had a school, all the days blend together, yesterday, that it's, well, Waldorf, it's no secret. I mean, Waldorf is perceived generally as a place where wealthy white kids are going to go. But that's not the case in a lot of different communities. So I want to make sure that you have the diversity you intend to have. And I want to hear more, if you can tell me more right now, because I have ideas about how you're going to recruit families in areas that you may not even feel comfortable relating. Because I want you to have that diverse student body and I want kids to have opportunity. So tell me more about what you're going to do.
So I love that you have ideas and I hope you share.
I will.
And in our community input hearings, we had ideas as well. I think we listed them in our application, just brainstorming ideas of how to reach out. I think someone mentioned going to the churches. That's a great way to go into every neighborhood. Another school that I heard an example from was an ice cream social. Food will bring them. So maybe do some outreach activities like that. And as Michelle mentioned, a tabletop at all the festivals and gatherings and outreach here. We do a ton in this community constantly. I know people say there's nothing to do around here, but my experience is you have to pick on the weekends because there's lots of things to do. So there's lots of opportunity for outreach. We have a small, tight-knit community. The word's out and word's gonna continue to go out. So we're gonna just continue that hard outreach the best we can.
And I'm going to kind of, portray some of my positionality as an educator. I taught for a long time, administered a long time, and I always want to reach those kids who seem unreachable, love the kids who seem unlovable. And I want to make sure that we chase down every child who thinks, I can't do that, for whatever the reason, whatever the barrier is, whether it's poverty or race or marginalization. I want to track that kid down. And so what does that effort look like? How do you go find those kids who can be best served by a leg up? That's a great question. And that we can pursue a whole lot of community and tabling events, but we need to go where those kids are. So we'll identify that. Where are those kids? Well, they're sitting in classrooms ideally, or they're at Washington Park, which is our park where our kids who ditch hang out. But we could go there, and it's just finding them where they're at and telling them that they can be better and that they can do this.
Tabling's nice, but that means they have to come to you and your table. You got to go to them. So just off the top of my head, and I told this to the school the other day, is I don't really know what media you have down here, if you have Spanish radio stations or TV or anything like that, but getting on those, obviously with someone who's fluent with you, but and then, yeah, reaching out that way. And people don't think about this, but who do you think probably has the largest networks? State representatives. Okay, people, the elected officials have huge networks. And so if they support the school, it's like you can plug into their network, because why wouldn't they want their kids to go to your school? Tell me about plans you have for professional development and peer support, how teachers work together and mentor one another.
I feel like I'm hogging the mic over here. So here's the thing about professional development is our teachers are worthy of a great investment. Our teachers are worthy of the best quality professional development. So what does that look like? Well, it's going to look a lot around student outcomes. How do you use data-driven instruction to make sure that the students are learning what you're teaching? So that's going to be a huge piece. Where do we access this? Gosh, there's lots of resources to access quality professional development. Our own public education department promotes a ton. Priority Schools Bureau, they promote a ton. CES. I mean, I could go on and on. There are lots of venues to pursue in order to provide high quality professional development. And then, of course, we're going to have all of the curriculum pieces. So their professional development would come into the AP Project Lead the Way, and using the standards-based instructional model, MLSS. So what I'm speaking is in full acronyms, I realize, but these are professional developments that I see unfolding for our teachers so that they can better teach, better promote educational delivery. But one of the most important will be the science and engineering aspects. And so being able to use, the National Science Foundation or use NTCSM and being able to tap into ISTE, and bringing some of those professional development opportunities. But more importantly is the teachers will tell us where are your strengths, where are your weaknesses, and then let's get you where you need to be for professional development. So I feel like that could be a myriad of opportunities. I feel like we will use needs of our students and needs of our teachers to guide exactly what that PD plan looks like.
Thank you. I wrote down transpo and food, but I know that Commissioner Ingham talked about that. So, we're making transportation one of our legislative priorities because I'll use McKinley. I have no problem calling them out. That county and district as one that absolutely positively will not cooperate with all of the different Native American charters in the area in providing transportation, even though the bus is just going right by. So the legislators need to step in on that. And on the food piece, I'm not worried. I'm not worried about that. Kids need to eat, and I know that you'll make sure that happens. So, okay, I want to make sure that I'm clear. So Ms. Stong, you're the founder. Are you going to be the leader you're planning on being the chair of the board? And then Ms. Perry, you're head of school. Is that how I'm hearing this kind of work?
I plan to step up if asked and be the head of the board. I have a lot of board experience.
Okay.
I'd love to get this policy structured and going smoothly. I'm willing to do that.
Okay.
And
The reason I ask, I want to get in my head what all of you are going to do, because this leads to the board question here.
Okay.
And so that I'm taking it then, Ms. Perry, Dr. Perry, that you're head of school.
we're going to do a search and she's going to apply.
Okay. I'm happy to hear that. That's part of the road to intentions, right? You can have great ideas, but maybe you're like revolutionaries. Yeah. I love Daniel Ortega at one time down there in Nicaragua, but no, you can't run a government or administrate at all. You're terrible. People need to recognize their strengths and weaknesses.
And I'm very adamant that even though I have been hand in hand on this process, I'm very adamant that we go find and we search the best. And so there could be another executive director that would fit the bill better than I. And I want to find that person.
Great.
Because
Then you can
we
serve
will
on the
do a
board.
job search. And then I would serve on the board. Correct.
Okay. My suggestion, 5 is the min, 7's good, because then you can have subcommittees without having to notice everything and people won't get burnt out as fast. On boards, and I'm very happy, Ms. Strong, that you came to our conference because it was focused on boards. We have schools, and when schools start to fail, it's generally the board that has failed first, right? And because they haven't done the oversight they're supposed to, they haven't held any of the people accountable or the head learner accountable. So when you are thinking about who to bring on the board, you got to have people that are willing to crack the whip. And everyone loves accountability until they're the ones that are held accountable. Okay. And I agree with, I think it was Tim that maybe said, I can't remember, no more than 2 parents, and I wouldn't load your board with educators either, because they come with a very specific idea. You want to, you want everybody that represents kind of the realm of what's out there in the business community and science and everything else. So this is, most everything that I wrote down has been discussed, which is why I really love that I'm going kind of last today. Schools are businesses. No one likes to think of it that way, but they are, okay? They're getting a bunch of money. from the state. Maybe it's going to be up to, when you're at full throng, $2 million a year. Okay. And you need to be held accountable for how you spend that money. So do any of you, whether it's in the private or public sector, have any experience running a business? And I think actually, I know you ran a practice, and I don't want to say you, Dr. Klump, I know you ran a practice, and Ms. Black, I know you had a very successful business. You have to hire the right people, train the right people, be willing to fire the right people, and manage budgets. What I wrote down here was, can you run a business? Tell me yes or no and why.
Yes, I can. I have a lot of experience with my job as a program manager at the Boeing company. Those were oversight of large millions of dollars customer orders. For example, Alitalia wants 3 777s. That I managed that program. So it fortunately consisted of going over to see them several times a year. But it was a large scale program, and we had to be on budget and on time. I fortunately got asked to run the local theater here when the person that was running it passed away. And my comment to that existing board was, I'm an engineer and you're a theater. And she said, yep, that's why we need you. So I can speak to my track record there as well. The budget of that theater is about $600,000 a year. It's a lot of grants and a lot of sponsorship donations. So you're very accountable to your community and to the grantees, of course. I've also, when I came in, had to fire some longtime volunteers. That was tough. In fact, I have a friend that works as in that consulting business up in Santa Fe, and I called him and I said, how do you do it? And he said, you just do it. So you have to be ready to make those hard calls. The data will tell you what to do. Your budget's yes or no. Your statistics, like for the theater attendance, yes or no. To me, it's pretty black and white.
I own 3 businesses currently, and before that, I was a director at a public school where I managed millions of dollars of budgets. So 3 businesses, 5 years, staying in business, and one of the businesses is a tech industry business. And you want to talk about a hard sell in southern New Mexico as a tech industry. So a lot of experience with businesses, nominated to be Business of the Year. So I feel very confident about looking at all of the business aspects of running a school.
So yes, I mentioned earlier, I ran a dance studio for 30 years. And I will say that every dime we made, we put back into the kids. It wasn't a real profit maker for us. Our main goal was to save kids in this community. In fact, I'm a cowgirl by nature, and it was a hip hop studio. And the whole reason that I went that way was because it kind of spoke to the ornery kids, and I really wanted to save kids in this town. I did innovative things like I had teachers come in and volunteer to tutor kids so that the teachers' kids could come for free. As long as they would tutor the kids that were having trouble, we set up a section in our studio where the kids came in and they had tutoring sessions with teachers from APS. We were constantly doing things like that. We were constantly thinking out of the box on how to get kids into the studio that really couldn't afford it. And then we were always figuring out ways to do just that. I like to share this story. I had a kid that was a break dancer, and he would just come in, and I would call him my gym rat because he would just like appear in the gym, really work out in the corner, and never really mix and mingle with the kids. So I went over to him and I asked him, like, if you'll start teaching your skills to my kids, that would be amazing. So he integrated into our studio. He always wanted to compete, but he never had the funding. Our choreographer showed up from Florida and said, man, this whole routine is built around Daniel because he's such a hardcore breakdancer. Is there any way we could put him in? And I said, you put him in and I'll figure out a way to get him paid for. So I went to Daniel and I was like, you better stay out of trouble. And you better come to every single practice because I'm going to do whatever I can to get you paid for to be in my studio. And he goes, well, Miss Lori already got paid for. And I said, who sponsored you? And he said, Mr. David, my husband. So I said, wow, what a cool story, right? Because David believed in him. My husband's a policeman, and my husband believed in this kid, and he believed that we could get him off the street and doing well. We went to Worlds that year. We walked away third, and I was disappointed because we had won the Worlds before. And as we were leaving, he hugged me and said, Miss Lori, man, I would be here. I would take third place with you any day over first. So stories like that is why I'm here, is because I believe that we can do the same thing in the school system. So when you say, how do we reach kids? I'm really one to think outside the box on how to get those kids in, because I came from low income family. So I wouldn't have been able to go to a private school here if this was, if this was given me the opportunity. And to be honest, on my husband and I's salary, we wouldn't have been able to put our kids into private school. So to have another school where their funding follows the child and it gives them such an incredible education, I'm all for that in this community. So I would do everything I could to think outside the box to get those kids involved.
I like that you use the phrase, the funding follows the child, because all too often districts say we steal their money and we steal their kids. It's like, it's not your money and it's not their, the funding follows the child, and it's their money to make a choice with what they want. And they have a great public school option, which is what I really love. Just going back to the board thing really quick, just encourage you when you recruit boards members, boy, sometimes and all of us have seen this, they have no idea what they're getting in for, what they're signing up for. It's especially with a charter school. They need to be committed, and they need, with time and with a minimum of probably 2 to 3 years. You can't have a rotating door on a board, because then you have a rotating board with your head learner, and then the whole thing starts to go to heck, So a lot of these things have been addressed already. I know that Miss Burt, who is online, may have things. Oh, she's off? Okay. I understand the need for a school like this. I don't think it bleeds the district at all. I think it kind of elevates opportunities for children in certain areas. And a couple of the people that spoke specifically to that was it was very Nolan Odeja. And then there was another gentleman who has said he has 13 more years of kids in going through public schools, and just the need for this. Sometimes the public school, the district school may just not work or focuses enough on a certain area. And thank you for your efforts and what you're doing. And I agree with the concerns that Ms. Gibson has relative to budget. Schools, everything can be really great, and then all of a sudden they're in financial ruin, and then they're on our agenda, every month, and then they're not open anymore. So all these pieces, man, it's really hard to open and operate a charter. So I appreciate you and your commitment to kids and to this concept in your community. So thank you very much.
More quick question. You mentioned in your presentation, project-based learning. There's not a lot in the application that speaks to it. So could you tell me a little bit more about how you see project-based learning? I'm the humanities person. I lived and breathed project-based. It's difficult to get teachers to understand good project-based learning. It is.
Mike, this is Cindy. I think they might have frozen.
Yeah, I see that.
I'll chat with Missy and let her know.
Okay, thanks.
Looks like we lost Santa Fe audio. Everyone that is still on, Santa Fe Audio lost a connection at the site in Alamogordo. They are currently working on it to get back on.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you, Lucy, for being on top of this as always.
You're welcome.
We're okay now. So once again, we are. So we can continue with the PBL.
I'm going to hand it over to Michelle here.
So I'm a consultant, as I mentioned, and I do a lot of work around PBL. I do a lot of training presentations around project-based learning. So I have a whole lot to say about this topic. It's a method in which you have to give students an extended amount of time to solve a real and relative problem. Okay, so we'll start there. So what is all the curriculum deal about? It's science and math and engineering. And so those real and relevant problems, ELA, science, and math, are all going to be very meaningful, and the problem will be built into the scope and sequence on a regular basis. And so the instruction that spurs from the project and the effort to solve the problem will be the units and lessons that are provided to the students. So PBL is not just a fun thing we're gonna throw in there. PBL's got to be the core of where all of the other learning and mastering the standards of New Mexico, that's where that all appears. And so the problems are real. And guess where the problems will lie? The problems will lie in problems given to us by our partners. So the test group, would be able to provide us input on these are the problems that we encounter, and this could be a great piece of your project-based learning opportunity with your students. And so using real relative problems and as an anchor into the scope and sequence, that is how I see PBL, and that's how I train PBL.
Appreciate that. I just didn't see a robust build out of that in the application. So that's why my question, is it an integral portion of your educational programming? Because you mentioned it, but it really isn't built into the fabric of this application. Okay, thanks.
Can I do
Oh, Commissioner Taylor, I'm sorry. Does he has his hand up, correct? Sorry, I apologize. Commissioner Taylor?
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, I just wanted to do a little wrap up on my part. I feel like I love what y'all are doing. I really do. I feel like that you've put together a very competent, experienced committee to start the school, and so I'm proud of y'all for doing that and doing the immense, arduous work that you've done to this point. I mean, I love it. So thank you guys for that. I see great enthusiasm in all of you, and amongst the community, when they were sharing. I mean, I think there's a need, and I think there's a want in that community, and I appreciate the fact that you all are attempting to address that. So again, thank you for that. Again, Dr. Michelle, I don't know your last name, but Dr. Michelle, I love that your response to I think it was Commissioner Manus or Carrillo that was talking about the goals and the standards that you set. Absolutely, 100% agree. why are we measuring against the New Mexico, the 50th state in education in the country? We need to measure what we believe students can do, and I love that approach. You're right on as far as I'm concerned. I think that there's lots to do practically, and again, I think with that enthusiasm, you guys have approached this with, we're going to have a full boat from the very beginning, and we're going to have the money we need to do what we need to do. But I think that the budget in particular, you need some contingency plans, right? And I would re-emphasize the fact that I'm on the governing council of a district authorized school in Roswell. We are one of the top performing charter schools in the state every single year, and we have a fifth hand ugly building that we operate from, and we've made the best of it. But our resources go into providing for the kids and providing for their education. We have a STEM lab in our K through 8 school that's got, we've got 198 students. We've got 200 students on the wait list. I mean, it's a force, in our little city. So I would just recommend to you that, to again, kind of think about really prioritizing the purchases that you need, the technology and those kind of things, and maybe prioritize, put the building on less of a priority. Obviously, you're going to have to, with your budget, you're going to have to maybe plan a tiered implementation of the things that you want, desire. I don't think I'm recommending to forego any of your dreams and goals. I'm just saying that some of those things might have to come at a later time. And y'all are brilliant people. You'll figure that stuff out. I'm just saying that the budget part of it is extremely difficult, and as you're working through that, just make sure you have contingency plans. But man, I'm 100% for your ideas and what you're doing. I think that you offer a unique program, because I think when you take a system and you tweak it and you go, you don't have to have unusual things. You just have to have things that address the needs in the community. And if one of your goals is if one of the things that makes you unique is, we're going to make sure that 100% of our students have a plan when they graduate. We're going to make sure that 90% of our students are proficient in the math and sciences. Holy cow, that to me is that sets you apart in this charter. So, good job, keep it up, and thank you again for your time today.
Can I make a quick comment then? Thank you, Commissioner Taylor.
Yeah.
I just also, we have toured ugly buildings, by the way. We're not putting our eggs in one basket. And I didn't know if I could say this or not, but we've applied for the CSP grant. And I know we meet a lot of the things they're looking for with uniqueness and new to the area. And they help with transportation, and they help with that building. So that's one of the pieces that we have in our arsenal.
Okay, so I want to thank you once again, because I'm well aware of all the time and effort and energy that goes into what we're asking you to do. But in return, you're asking us to let you, play with children's lives. So it's, it's a big ask. So we take it very seriously. So sometimes you walk out of these meetings and the questions seem like, oh God, I don't know if that went well or not. But we tend to deal with the unknowns, what hasn't been, completely answered. So we dig in a lot. So I'm just going to repeat. We'll have our meeting in a week from Friday. The letter will come out Monday or Tuesday the following week. And CSD will, in between then and our August meeting, do their final recommendation to us. And then we'll have the August hearing that you'll make reservations for early. So, and if there's any other questions, like I said, please don't hesitate to contact the director because it's our time. So, but thank everyone that came and everyone that stayed here with us. We take very seriously everyone's input in this because we want to do this right. So thank you. Commissioners, a motion to adjourn?
So.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no, oh, no, not for adjournment. Hearing no objection, we are adjourned.